The last Earth Defense Monitoring Station hung silently in space, its sensors straining to capture every detail of humanity's greatest defeat. Commander Raj Patel pressed his palms against the cold metal of his console, watching as another human destroyer vanished in a burst of blue-white energy. His fingers traced the edge of the emergency shutdown button, but he couldn't bring himself to stop recording. Someone needed to witness this. "Sir," Lieutenant Park's voice cracked slightly. "The Resolute just went dark. That's the last capital ship in the defense fleet." Patel nodded, his eyes fixed on the main display. The Archean warships moved with perfect geometric precision, their energy weapons cutting through Earth's most advanced shields like they weren't even there. Each blast left a peculiar afterimage on his retinas, a ghostly reminder of another crew lost to the void. "Transfer all power to the sensors," he ordered. "If this is our last stand, we're going to record every second of it." The station's lights dimmed as power redirected to the sensor arrays. The massive holographic display above them sharpened, showing the battle in excruciating detail. Patel had watched the Archean ships for hours now, trying to understand their tactics, their weaknesses, anything that might help. But they seemed perfect, untouchable. Then he saw it. "Lieutenant, replay the last 30 seconds of the Resolute's destruction. Focus on the Archean dreadnought's power signature." The scene played out again in ghostly blue light. The massive Archean ship, all smooth lines and gleaming metal, fired its main weapon. But this time, Patel wasn't watching the destruction. He was watching the energy readings. There. He jabbed his finger at the display. Every time they fire, there's a fluctuation in their shield matrix. It's tiny, barely a microsecond, but it's there. Park squinted at the readings. "Sir, even if that fluctuation is real, it's too small to exploit. Our weapons can't. Our current weapons can't." Patel interrupted, his mind racing. "But what if we're thinking about this all wrong? The Archeans built their ships around energy weapons because they're elegant, efficient. Perfect." He pulled up the historical database, fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Look at human history. Every time we faced a supposedly perfect defense, we didn't beat it by building a better version. We beat it by thinking differently." The station shuddered as debris from the battle struck their outer hull. Warning lights flashed across every console, but Patel ignored them. He was too busy pulling up file after file. Ancient castle sieges, tank battles, naval warfare. "Sir," Park's voice was urgent now. "The Archean fleet is changing course. They're heading for Earth. We need to warn." "Wait." Patel's voice was barely a whisper. "Look at these readings again. The fluctuation isn't random. It's a resonance pattern. Their weapons are so powerful, they're actually affecting their own shields. They've built their entire fleet around a single principle of energy manipulation, and they've pushed it to its absolute limit." He straightened up, a strange light in his eyes. "That's their weakness. They've optimized their technology so much, they've lost the ability to adapt. But that's what humans do best." The station's proximity alarms began to wail. The Archean fleet was beginning its approach to Earth, their perfect formation unchanged, their energy weapons charging for another salvo. "Send all our sensor data to Earth," Patel ordered. "Every reading, every analysis, everything we've recorded. And add a message. Look for the pattern in their perfection. That's where we'll find our chance." As the data streamed toward Earth, Patel watched the Archean ships advance. They were beautiful in their terrible precision, each movement calculated to the microsecond. But now he saw something else in their perfection. The seeds of their own defeat. Humanity had lost this battle, but in that loss, they'd gained something precious: understanding. The spark of innovation, born in humanity's darkest hour, would soon ignite a fire that would change the galaxy forever. Kay Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her worn leather jacket standing out sharply against the pristine uniforms surrounding her. The quantum engineer had been dragged away from her workshop at 3 a.m., her hands still stained with engine grease. On the massive display behind her, Commander Patel's sensor data played in an endless loop. With all due respect, Admiral Chen's voice dripped with skepticism. You're suggesting we abandon 60 years of shield development to build. What exactly? Kay pulled a battered tablet from her jacket pocket. Not abandon, Admiral. Evolve. She gestured at the holographic display, and a new image appeared. A motorcycle engine, of all things. Look at how we solved the cooling problem in hyperspeed racing. When conventional heat sinks failed, we didn't just make them bigger. We turned the heat itself into power. James Mackenzie, known throughout the shipyards as Old Space, stepped forward. His weathered face bore the marks of 50 years building vessels across the solar system. The lady's right. Been watching these Archean ships. They're beautiful, sure. Perfect, even. But they're all built the same way. Thinking the same way. The council chamber erupted in whispers as Kay brought up her next diagram. It showed an impossible hybrid, quantum field generators intertwined with what looked like ancient mechanical systems. They're expecting us to try to copy their technology, Kay explained, her eyes bright with excitement. To build better energy weapons, stronger energy shields. But what if we did something they'd never expect? What if we built ships that eat their energy weapons for breakfast? Admiral Chen leaned forward. You can't be serious. Their weapons tear through our best shields like paper. Exactly. Kay's grin widened. Because we're trying to block the energy. But what if we could catch it instead? Channel it. Use it. Mackenzie nodded, pointing to specific parts of the diagram. Think about it like old sailing ships riding a storm. You don't fight the wind. You use it. These mechanical systems here, they're not primitive. They're proven. Reliable. And when you combine them with the quantum tech the girls designed, it's insane. Someone muttered from the back of the chamber. Insane is exactly what we need, Kay countered. She pulled up Commander Patel's sensor data again. Look at these power signatures. The Archeans have optimized their weapons to the theoretical limit. They can't make them any stronger without burning out their own ships. But that means they can't adapt when someone does something unexpected. She walked to the center of the chamber, her boots echoing on the polished floor. Give us 3 months. Let us build a prototype. If it doesn't work, you've lost nothing. But if it does, she let the sentence hang. The council chamber fell silent. Admiral Chen studied the diagrams, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Where would you build it? Mackenzie stepped forward again. Got an old assembly yard out in the belt, off the main shipping lanes. Perfect spot to work without prying eyes. And your team. Kay's tablet displayed a new list of names. I want the misfits, the mechanics who modify their own equipment, the engineers who break convention. People who understand that sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. Admiral Chen was silent for a long moment. The display behind them showed an Archean warship firing its main weapon, its perfect symmetry a reminder of everything humanity was up against. 3 months, he said finally. Not 1 day more. And if this fails? Kay was already heading for the door, Mackenzie right behind her. It won't fail, Admiral. Because we're not trying to beat them at their own game. We're about to invent a whole new one. As they left the chamber, Mackenzie glanced at his young partner. You really think this crazy idea will work? Kay patted the motorcycle engine diagram on her tablet. The craziest ideas usually do, Old Space. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? We all die horribly. Yeah. Kay grinned. But at least we'll do it in style. The asteroid facility, nicknamed The Forge, buzzed with activity at all hours. In the main workshop, Jamie Chen balanced a cup of coffee on a stack of quantum field diagrams, his eyes red from another all-night session. Around him, traditional metallurgy equipment sat alongside cutting-edge quantum sensors in an unlikely marriage of old and new. This is impossible, he muttered, watching another hull sample disintegrate under the test beam. We've tried every alloy combination in the database. Nothing can handle that much energy redistribution. Mackenzie walked over, picking up the failed sample with a practiced eye. Maybe that's the problem. We're still thinking like engineers, trying to find the perfect material. He pulled out an old leather wallet and removed a carefully folded piece of paper. Take a look at this. Jamie unfolded the paper to reveal an ancient diagram of wave patterns in steel. What am I looking at? Pattern welding. Old technique for making sword blades. Instead of looking for the perfect metal, they learned to combine layers. Each layer compensates for the weaknesses of the others. Kay looked up from her workstation, where she'd been running quantum simulations, like a distributed computing network. No single point of failure. She walked over, coffee cup in hand, and studied the diagram. But how do we apply that to energy absorption? Jamie's eyes widened. Wait. He grabbed his coffee cup and held it over the quantum resonance chamber. Look at the ripple pattern when I do this. He tapped the side of the cup, sending waves through the liquid. The quantum field sensors lit up with an unexpected reading. The waves, Kay breathed. They're creating a natural dampening effect. What if we built the hull in layers, like the pattern welding, but designed each layer to create specific wave patterns when hit with energy weapons? Mackenzie nodded slowly. The energy would get caught in the patterns, bouncing between layers instead of punching through. Better than that, Jamie was already programming a new simulation. If we tuned the layers right, we could actually capture the energy, store it, maybe even use it. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of coffee, calculations, and failed attempts. The workshop floor became littered with discarded hull samples, each one a step closer to success. Team members drifted in and out, contributing ideas before collapsing into exhausted sleep. Finally, at 3 a.m., they were ready for another test. Hull sample 247. Kay announced to the recording system. Quantum resonant pattern welding with 15 distinct layers, each layer calibrated to create specific energy wave patterns when struck. Jamie placed the sample in the test chamber. It looked deceptively simple, a small square of metal that seemed to shimmer slightly under the harsh workshop lights. Firing test beam in 3, 2, 1. The energy beam struck the sample. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the metal began to glow, not with heat, but with a strange, rippling light that moved through the layers like waves on water. Energy absorption at 90%. Jamie read from his display. No structural degradation. The patterns are holding. Kay stared at the readings in disbelief. Look at the energy signature. It's not just absorbing the beam. It's storing the energy in a stable quantum state between the layers. Mackenzie picked up the sample after it cooled. To the naked eye, it looked unchanged, but instruments showed it humming with captured power. Like a battery made of armor, he mused. The harder they hit us, the stronger we get, Kay finished. She looked around the workshop, at the failed attempts and countless hours of work that led to this moment. Sound familiar? Jamie was already scaling up the design. We'll need to adjust the pattern for different sections of the hull. Bridge will need more layers than the cargo holds, and we'll need a way to safely release the stored energy. One step at a time, Mackenzie cautioned, but he was smiling. First, let's go wake up the Admiral. Show him what impossible looks like. Kay gathered their data, pausing to look at the glowing sample. You know what the best part is? We couldn't have built this without both old knowledge and new science. It's not about being perfect. It's about being human, Mackenzie agreed. Now let's go build a ship that will make the galaxy question everything they think they know about us. Zara Ibrahim watched the new batch of security drones fail their patrol route for the third time. The automated sentries, packed with the latest AI detection systems, had once again been fooled by basic maintenance activity in the asteroid belt. She switched off the simulation and turned to her team. Conventional security isn't going to work, she announced, tossing her tablet onto the briefing room table. We need something the Arctians won't expect. Joe Cooper, a retired asteroid miner with 30 years of experience, looked up from his card game. You know what we used to say in the belt. Best alarm system is a nosy neighbor. Zora paused. Go on. Well, Cooper shuffled his deck absently. Back in the early mining days, we didn't have fancy sensors. But every miner knew exactly what their patch of space should sound like, smell like, feel like. You'd notice if something was off before any computer could spot it. The security chief's eyes lit up. How many retired belt workers do we know who'd want one last job? Within a week, the Forge's security profile changed completely. Former miners took jobs as maintenance workers, their practiced eyes constantly scanning for anything unusual. Retired space truckers signed on as cargo handlers, their decades of experience letting them spot irregularities in shipping manifests that even advanced AI missed. It's brilliant, Kay admitted, watching the facility's new crew at work. They look exactly like what they are, old space hands taking easy retirement jobs. No one would guess they're our security system. The first test of the new approach came sooner than expected. In the mess hall, Cooper dealt another hand of cards to his regular group, all veterans of various space industries. As they played, a young technician walked past, carrying repair tools. Funny thing, Cooper remarked casually, laying down a card. That's the third time today someone's taken tools to the auxiliary power room. Must be having problems. Across the table, a former station engineer frowned. Auxiliary power's been running fine. I checked it myself this morning. Cooper placed another card. Raise you 10. The message spread through the facility's unofficial network. Casual conversations, meaningful glances, subtle hand signals developed over decades in space. Within minutes, Zara received 3 separate reports about suspicious activity, none of them through official channels. She found the infiltrator in the auxiliary power room, carefully placing what looked like standard monitoring equipment. The operative was good. The devices would have fooled any normal security scan. But they didn't fool Manuel Ortiz, who'd maintained similar systems for 20 years and knew exactly how they should and shouldn't look. Nice try, Zara said from the doorway. But did you really think we wouldn't notice an extra power draw of exactly 0.047%? That's the standard efficiency rating for Arxian monitoring devices, isn't it? The infiltrator reached for a weapon but stopped when Cooper and 2 other maintenance workers stepped into view, looking more dangerous than any armed guard. Here's what's going to happen, Zora continued. You're going to walk out of here with your equipment. Your superiors will receive a report that this facility is exactly what it appears to be, a retirement project for old space workers. And if anyone else tries to infiltrate us, they'll have to get past the nosiest bunch of space veterans in the solar system. Cooper finished, still shuffling his ever-present deck of cards. After the infiltrator was escorted out, Kay found Zora in her office. How did you know they'd catch the spy? Zara smiled. Because the Arxians, like their technology, are perfect. Precise. They expect the same from us. They look for advanced security systems, encrypted communications, tactical deployments. But they don't understand human nature. The best security isn't the most sophisticated, Kay realized. It's the most adaptable. Exactly. They're looking for a fortress. Zara gestured at a screen showing the facility's common areas, where retired space workers went about their business, eyes always watching, always noticing. What we've built is a community. Cooper stuck his head in the door. Speaking of community, weekly poker games starting in 10 minutes. You in? Zara grabbed her jacket. Wouldn't miss it. After all, half our security alerts come from that poker table. Best cover story ever. Cooper grinned. Also, I'm definitely going to win my credits back tonight. Keep dreaming, old man. Zora laughed. Keep dreaming. Lieutenant Anna Santos stood on the bridge of the Star Forge, running her hands over controls she'd helped install just days ago. Around her, the minimal crew, each of them part of the construction team, ran final checks on systems that were more theoretical than tested. Main quantum lattice is stable, Marcus Yang reported from engineering. Well, stable-ish. probably won't explode." "Your confidence is overwhelming," Anna replied, but she was smiling. "How's our hull integrity?" "All layers responding," Emma Patel called from the systems station. "Pattern resonance is nominal, though I should mention we never actually tested it at full scale." Anna took a deep breath. "Right, just a simple shakedown cruise. What could possibly go wrong?" The answer came 3 hours later, as they were testing the quantum drive at the edge of the test zone. 3 Archean patrol ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their perfect formation a stark contrast to Starforge's experimental bulk. "Well," Marcus's voice crackled over the comm, "guess we're about to find out if this crazy idea works." The Archean ships, clearly puzzled by Starforge's unusual design, paused for a moment. Then their energy weapons powered up in perfect synchronization. "All hands," Anna called, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. "Battle stations. Time to show them what we've built." The first energy blast struck Starforge's bow. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the hull began to glow with a rippling wave-like pattern. Energy absorption at 75% and climbing. Emma's hands flew over her console. The pattern-welded layers are working exactly as designed. Better, actually. We're storing more power than we calculated was possible. The Archean ships fired again, their perfect tactical algorithms unable to compute why their target hadn't been vaporized. Each hit made Starforge's hull glow brighter, the quantum-resonant layers drinking in the energy like a desert soaking up rain. "Hull energy storage at maximum capacity," Marcus reported. "We need to bleed it off or the containment layers will breach." Anna grinned. Remember what Kay said about the hull being both armor and battery. She pointed at a jury-rigged control panel they'd installed the night before. Time to return their energy. With interest. The release mechanism was crude, literally a modified motorcycle throttle welded to a quantum controller. Anna grabbed it and twisted. Energy stored in Starforge's hull burst forth in a wave that caught the nearest Archean ship completely off guard. Their perfect shields, calibrated for optimal energy deflection, had no defense against their own power being thrown back at them. Direct hit. Emma cheered as the Archean ship's shields flickered and failed. Their shield matrix is completely overloaded. They're running on emergency power. The remaining 2 ships broke formation, the first sign of uncertainty they'd shown. Their next volley was hesitant, uncoordinated. Starforge's hull drank in their attacks eagerly, the pattern-welded layers creating beautiful interference patterns as they stored and channeled the energy. "They're talking to each other," the communications officer reported, "trying to figure out what we are. Their tactical computers are apparently having fits trying to classify us." "Let's give them something else to think about," Anna said, twisting the throttle again. Another burst of stored energy lashed out, catching both remaining ships in its wake. Their perfect formations and calculated tactics meant nothing when their own energy was being used against them. The Archean ships retreated, their formation ragged, their hulls scarred by their own reflected power. On Starforge's bridge, the crew stood in stunned silence. "Did we just?" Emma started. "Win?" Marcus finished. Yeah, we did." Anna looked at her hands, still gripping the makeshift throttle. "Send word to command. Tell them." She smiled. "Tell them the impossible works just fine." As the message was sent, she watched the retreating Archean ships. They'd come expecting to find an inferior copy of their technology. Instead, they'd found something they couldn't calculate, couldn't predict, couldn't understand. They'd found humanity at its best, imperfect, improvising, and absolutely unstoppable. The recording of Starforge's victory played on endless loop in the Rigel Trade Commission's central chamber. Merchant Prince Zach still adjusted his ceremonial robes as he watched the impossible scene yet again. The human vessel's hull rippled with absorbed energy, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "Their asking price is reasonable," his chief negotiator whispered, "especially considering what this technology represents. In another sector, the crystal minds of Vega processed the same recording through their collective consciousness. The crystalline beings had long considered themselves the galaxy's premier innovators. But this was something new. Back on Earth, K stood before a very different audience. The Arxian military delegation sat rigid in their seats, their perfect posture betraying their discomfort. As you can see, she gestured to the tactical display. Your latest weapon modifications actually improved our energy absorption rate by 12%. Would you like to know why? The lead Arxian delegate, High Commander Nexus, twitched slightly. Our calculations were perfect. The energy density should have overwhelmed your storage capacity. That's because you calculated based on standard energy storage principles. Kay pulled up a diagram of Starforge's hull. We're not storing energy. We're teaching it to dance. The metaphor clearly pained the Arxian delegation. Their species had spent millennia perfecting energy weapon technology, refining it into an exact science. The idea that humans were treating their precise energy beams like partners in a cosmic ballet was almost physically painful to them. Meanwhile, in a space dock near Mars, Marcus Yang gave a very different presentation to a group of independent ship captains. The beauty of it is its simplicity, he explained, showing them a cross-section of the hull design. You don't need exotic materials or perfect manufacturing. It's all about the patterns, the layers working together. Even a small ship with basic facilities can implement a scaled-down version. The captains leaned forward, their eyes bright with possibility. They'd spent years watching the major powers dominate space with their superior technology. Now, finally, the playing field was shifting. In the Arxian Empire's central planning complex, their best scientists struggled with a fundamental problem. Every attempt to counter the human technology led to more efficient energy absorption. It was like trying to fight a fire by throwing fuel on it. Perhaps, a junior scientist suggested, we should consider a completely different approach. The suggestion earned him immediate reassignment to a remote monitoring station, but the seed of doubt was planted. The Empire's perfect system had encountered something it couldn't calculate away. Back aboard Starforge, Anna Santos received another interesting transmission. The merchant clans want to negotiate trade rights, she told her crew. The vegans are proposing a technology exchange, and 3 other species I'd never even heard of are requesting diplomatic channels. Not bad for a bunch of primitive humans with our crude technology. Emma laughed from her station. Did you see the latest Arxian report? They're still insisting our success was statistically impossible. That's the problem with believing in perfection, Anna replied. You forget that impossible is just another word for something you haven't tried yet. The ship's quantum-resonant hull hummed softly, its layers still holding traces of energy from their last encounter. Each pattern within it told a story of human ingenuity, of the strength found in imperfection, of the power of thinking differently. In his private chambers, Merchant Prince Zaxtel made his decision. Send word to Earth, he told his aide. Tell them we accept their terms. And, he paused, watching the recording one final time. Tell them we look forward to seeing what impossible thing they'll do next. The message joined countless others streaming toward Earth. The galaxy was changing, awakening to a new possibility. That perfection might not be about flawless execution, but about the ability to adapt, to innovate, to see beauty in the unexpected. And at the heart of it all, a ship with a hull that danced with energy, crewed by humans who had dared to dream impossible dreams. The orbital shipyards above Mars buzzed with activity as Kay walked Marcus through the latest modifications. Below them, dozens of ships in various stages of construction showed the evolution of their original design. Each vessel was unique, a far cry from the uniform perfection of Arxian production lines. Look at what they've done with the resonance patterns. Kay pointed to a merchant vessel under construction. They've incorporated old Terran sailing ship designs into the quantum layer arrangement. The energy flows through the hull like wind through sails. Marcus nodded appreciatively. The Rigel traders adapted it further. They're using crystal lattices between the layers to create secondary harmonic patterns. Increases energy storage by 30%. A group of engineering students from the Vega Collective floated past, their crystalline forms refracting light as they studied a prototype hull section. One of them had modified their structure to mimic the wave patterns they were learning about. "Never thought I'd see the day," Marcus mused, "when the most advanced species in the galaxy would be taking engineering lessons from us primitive humans." In the main design lab, Emma Patel was leading a fascinating experiment. She gathered engineers from 12 different species, each bringing their own traditional construction methods to the table. "The Andromedans use living metal," she explained to her audience. "We thought about combining it with our pattern welding technique. The metal actually learns from each energy impact, adapting its structure in real time. On the test platform, a small hull sample rippled with organic patterns as it absorbed and channeled energy. The Andromedan engineers' color-shifting skin showed their excitement as the readings came in. But the real breakthrough," Emma continued, "came from studying ancient Earth pottery techniques. The way different clays react under heat gave us the idea for dynamic layer composition." In another section of the shipyard, Anna Santos conducted a very different kind of class. A group of alien helmsmen gathered around as she demonstrated the motorcycle throttle control system that had become standard on human vessels. "Your ship's energy absorption is more than just defense," she explained, executing a complex maneuver in the simulator. "It's a conversation between you and your vessel. You need to feel the rhythm of it." The aliens watched in fascination as she rode the energy waves like a surfer, using stored power for everything from propulsion to fine maneuvering. It was the opposite of their precise, calculated approach to space combat. Meanwhile, at the quantum physics lab, Jamie Chen worked with a team of Arxian scientists who had defected, drawn by the freedom to explore new ideas. "The problem wasn't that your theories were wrong," he told them, sketching on a wrinkled napkin. "They were just too perfect. Sometimes you need a little chaos to make real progress." The former Arxians struggled with the concept, but their eyes showed growing understanding as Jamie demonstrated how controlled imperfection could lead to unexpected breakthroughs. In the shipyard's main observation deck, Kay found Joe Cooper teaching a group of young engineers from various species how to play poker. "Best way to understand human thinking," he insisted, dealing another hand. "Sometimes you work with what you've got, sometimes you bluff, but you always keep adapting." The vegan student, their crystalline form shimming with interest, laid down a royal flush. "Now you're getting it," Cooper laughed. Kay looked out at the shipyard, where vessels of all shapes and sizes were being born. Some incorporated living metal, others crystal matrices, still others used principles that hadn't even existed a month ago. Each design built on the last, an endless cycle of innovation and adaptation. "We didn't just change ship design," she realized. "We changed how the galaxy thinks about perfection." Marcus joined her at the window. "What's next?" She pointed to an experimental vessel under construction, its hull a mesmerizing blend of organic patterns and quantum engineering. "That's the beautiful thing about innovation. There is no next. There's just the next impossible thing waiting to be tried." Around them, the shipyard hummed with the sound of boundaries being broken, as the galaxy learned that the most perfect design was the one that wasn't afraid to be imperfect. The Arxian Grand Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, 5,000 ships strong, their energy weapons powered up in precise synchronization, a display of force meant to remind the galaxy of their supremacy. High Commander Nexus stood on his flagship's bridge, expecting to find Earth's defenses cowering before their approach. Instead, he found chaos. Human ships danced through space in seemingly random patterns, their hulls rippling with stored energy. Each vessel was unique, a marriage of old and new technologies that defied conventional tactical analysis. Behind them, ships from a dozen alien races moved in formations that made no mathematical sense. "Their battle strategy is completely illogical," his tactical officer reported, frustration evident in his voice. "Ships are adapting individual tactics based on instinct. In the center of Earth's defense fleet, Kay stood on Starforge's bridge with Anna Santos. They watched as the Arxian fleet tried to establish targeting solutions on vessels that refused to behave according to any known combat doctrine. "They still don't understand," Kay said softly. "They're looking for the perfect counter to our technology." Anna grinned, her hand resting on the now familiar motorcycle throttle. "Should we show them what they're really fighting?" The first Arxian volley launched, a wall of energy that should have annihilated anything in its path. Instead, the defending fleet came alive. Each ship absorbed and channeled the energy in its own unique way. Some used it for maneuvers that violated every rule of space combat. Others fed it through crystalline matrices developed with the vegans, creating cascade effects that rippled through space itself. On a small merchant vessel, Joe Cooper sat at his card table, now installed as the ship's tactical center. His crew of mixed species called out plays like they were in a poker game, each adaptation flowing naturally into the next. Full house beats a straight every time. He radioed as his ship turned another Arxian attack into a power source. The Arxian fleet's perfect formation began to break down. Each time they adjusted their tactics, the defending fleet responded in ways their combat computers couldn't predict. It wasn't just the technology they were fighting. It was an entirely new way of thinking. Message from the Arxian flagship. Emma reported from her communication station. There, requesting a pause in combat for consultation. Kay looked at the tactical display, where the Arxian fleet hung in space, their perfect formations now ragged and uncertain. "Put me through to High Commander Nexus." The Arxian commander's image appeared on screen, his perfect posture slightly strained. "Your tactical approach is impossible to quantify." "That's because it's not about quantification," Kay replied. "Look around you. Every ship in this fleet, whether human or alien, has learned to think differently. We're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to be better." "Better is measurable," Nexus argued. "Perfection is achievable through proper calculation." "Is it?" Kay gestured to the fleet around them. The Rigel merchants combined their trading routes with our hull designs to create entirely new energy distribution patterns. The vegan crystals learned to dance instead of calculate. Even your own scientists who joined us have discovered that imperfection can be a strength. Nexus was silent for a long moment, watching as ships of all designs moved through space in their seemingly chaotic dance. "Our empire is built on the principle of achievable perfection." "Maybe it's time to build something new," Kay suggested. "Something that grows instead of calculates. Something that learns instead of dictates." The silence stretched across space. Then, slowly, the Arxian weapon systems powered down. The Arxian Empire requests. Nexus seemed to struggle with the words, informal discussions about alternative approaches to technological development. Kay smiled. "We'll teach you how to play poker." As the tension of imminent battle faded into the possibility of peace, Kay looked around at the fleet they'd assembled. Every ship carried a piece of the innovation that had started in a hidden asteroid base. But more importantly, they carried the idea that had made it all possible, that the most perfect system was one that never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, never stopped trying new things. "You know what the really impossible thing was?" she asked Anna. "What's that?" "We didn't just change how ships are built. We changed how an entire galaxy thinks." Kay watched as human and alien crews began to mingle, sharing stories and ideas. "And we did it by being exactly what we are, perfectly imperfect."